So how can I overcome this obstacle faster? That question is one that I used to ask myself all the time because it really sounded like a great question, but it was actually the wrong question. You see, instead, I had to find a way to climb my mountain not only fast, but I had to learn the lesson so that I didn't have to climb that mountain again and again, which I did so many times that cost me so much valuable time, energy, and money. But it was at that time that I picked up a book from Ryan Holiday. It was called The Obstacle is the Way. I learned so many valuable insights from the book that it got me not only to be able to overcome obstacles faster, but to learn the lessons faster too. So if you've ever felt like your own mountain of challenge was too steep to climb, or you found yourself climbing the same mountain time and time again, then you're in the perfect place. And if you're ready to dive into Ryan's most impactful lessons and quotes from his book, and how you can apply them directly to your life and business now, well, let's go. It's time to redefine leadership. Welcome to Modern Leadership, where we see things differently. Our channel is all about empowering entrepreneurs like you to achieve the next level of success in business and life. We believe that you can create a massive impact in the world without compromising your personal life or family time to do so.
We're committed to providing you with actionable tips and strategies weekly to make that possible. So if you're ready to become a modern leader and make a lasting difference in the world, consider subscribing. Turn on notifications and dive into our community. We want to thank you for being here because the world needs your leadership now more than ever. Let's go. So let's get into this idea of really understanding what obstacles are. So Ryan Holiday begins by saying the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. First off, what does that mean and how do you even apply it?
Yeah, sometimes when we see obstacles, we not only overthink it so much, but we spend so much time being focused on the obstacle that it actually keeps us stuck. When in reality, when you realize that the obstacle is the way, which is what we're going to be talking about today, like how he was able to understand that, but then also get himself to believe that the obstacle was his way. Because when you do that, you now use this thing to find opportunities and to find new ways of doing things, as opposed to what it normally gets used as, which is just to keep us stuck. Now, I know I've been kept stuck for a long time, and it's because of the way that I was approaching it, right? When I understood the philosophies we're going to talk about here today, and I read the book and I started to implement them, that's when things no longer became challenges. They actually became opportunities. But it's a hard thing to do in the moment. So let's dive in. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the perception of obstacles, all right, and how you look at obstacles. So he stressed the importance of perceptions in overcoming difficulties. So I'm curious, can you share an example of how a perception has actually helped you overcome a challenge by being able to see things differently?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of different examples, but the way that I see it now, and this has been a process because I would find myself really not seeing things the way that would help me move forward. And the way that you perceive things really changes the feelings that you have and then the actions that you take. And that is super important. So I remember when I was working full time and we were deciding for me to come home so that we can work on the business a little bit more and I could be home with the kids. Now, I had a lot of conflicting thoughts about this decision because it was a really big decision and it wasn't something that we were taking lightly. But the way that I was initially perceiving this was that I was doing something wrong by leaving my full-time job because I thought I worked so hard to get to where I am. And I thought that I was not going to have value because my identity was so closely related to what I was doing working full time. But I had to change my perception around it because I wanted a different outcome. So the way that I started to see it was I was multi-passionate and I wanted to do something new. And I also wanted to spend more time with my kids. So I had to reframe my thoughts around this. I had to think about why I truly wanted this, why it was so important for me, and what this could potentially do for us. And as I started to reframe that, I started to feel a little bit differently about it. I started to have more positive emotions around this particular decision, which actually created the actions that would take me to really focusing on our business and how we can actually make this a really positive outcome.
Yeah, I love that a lot. When I think about one of my mentors, he asks me this question all the time. It is, how can I be most effective right now? Mm-hmm. And when you're focused on what's broken, wrong, or missing, or the obstacle, or why this is happening to you, you actually won't go out into the world and not only like find a way to overcome it, but you actually hold yourself back from actually helping more people through that process too, right? It's one of those things where it only hurts us, but then it also hurts everybody else that we're around if we're focused on seeing it as an obstacle. But when we actually see it as a challenge that we're willing to take, and as a matter of fact, getting through it is going to help us empower us and others to get through it too, just a different energy. I know we talk about this in our life coach certification as being our heart voice, right? When we're not thinking about scarcity or lack or fear, it's more based off of purpose or potential or hope, right? When we can really reframe it, that's how you can be most effective, because your energy and your time is very limited. And so the time and energy, especially the mental energy that you have, when it's focused on creating opportunities and new things, you're going to see that you actually produce more than when you're focused on what's broken, wrong, or missing.
Yeah, and another thing is that, this whole analogy of the mountain, right, is this obstacle that you feel is getting in your way, and you have to climb it, and it could be really steep, and it just really describes what that looks like in our mind, because really it's all about, right, the perception of what this mountain is. And we always come across different mountains. And I think that changing our perception of it will actually make that big mountain that we think that we're right in front of and we can't climb much smaller.
100%.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about like actions amidst the challenges. So one of Ryan's key messages is about taking action. And action is commonplace. Right action is not. So could you kind of discuss a time when taking the right action transformed a potential failure into success?
Yeah, this one actually really hit home with me, because like when you're overcoming an obstacle and you're taking action, right? He describes it as action and then the right action, right? But you have to start off by taking some sort of action. Mm-hmm. The issue that we run into is when we keep doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting a different result. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is the definition of insanity, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, when you are taking action, that thing is going to teach you whether or not it's the right action to take. But you have to be willing to be the student. You have to be willing to go, oh, hey, you know what? I might do this instead. Mm-hmm. I mean, a perfect example is us and how we actually created this YouTube channel. Like, we were putting all of our time and attention into Facebook and Instagram and some of our podcasts, right? And it was like, we were forcing it. And we're like, man, like, this just isn't, it's not coming into alignment, not only with what we want, but we're not attracting the right people, right? And then we joined YouTube. And then we were able to like have these kind of like conversations, and people are like, I've never seen a husband and wife team being able to talk about this kind of stuff and being able to coach each other and all this kind of stuff, right? And so it was like us being able to try something different was the thing that kind of like unlocked all the potential that we had before, but it was like, this is the way that we had to do it, right? Mm-hmm. So instead of like forcing it, yes, you can take action, but you have to like actually be able to think about that action. You have to be able to evolve, to be able to like take what it is you're doing and make adjustments to it moving forward. And that is how you find the right action. Now, he also talks about the role of will when you're willing yourself to do things. He mentions the obstacle in the path becomes the path. He says, never forget, within every obstacle is an opportunity to improve our condition. So I'm curious, like, how has that kind of like mindset of having that indomitable will actually helped you, whether it's like as an entrepreneur, as a parent, or anything like that? Like, how has it helped?
Yeah, the way that I see it, and it's kind of related to what you were just talking about taking action. The way that I see it is that it's a challenge, and it's something that I know that if I put the effort into it, that I can overcome. So again, it's like reframing your mind and how you perceive things. But it's almost like it's like those lessons, right? We have to learn those lessons in order to get to where we want to go. And really kind of like those lessons are there to teach us something. Those obstacles are there so that we can become more resilient, so that when another challenge comes up, we know how to tackle that. So in my life, I have, come across many different things that have become more of opportunities rather than those obstacles, right? And it takes a lot of practice to be able to really see that, because, as humans, we're always looking for danger. Like, what is going to harm us? What is going to, be something that is going to make us uncomfortable? And then when we start to reframe our mind to thinking, okay, this is an obstacle, how can I challenge this? Right? There's a totally different energy that you take when you see an obstacle as something that like you can do it. And like, if you don't succeed, you're still going to learn something from it. And that's really the purpose of what he's talking about here.
Yeah. And what you said there, especially when it comes to getting outside help, is sometimes really critical, because when you're in the moment, like when I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, being a health and fitness coach, losing weight and getting into the best shape of my life, and then getting diagnosed with an autoimmune disease made my head go down the path of like my head voice, which is like, what's broken, wrong, or missing? How am I going to be able to help people now that I had this disease and all this kind of stuff? And I needed to get somebody else to take me out of that, right? So I needed to have conversations with you and with coaches and mentors and people to get me to see it as an opportunity rather than being able to just do it in my head, which is a lot of people want to do that. I just want to do it all in my head.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, like, that wasted a lot of time and energy. But sometimes your mentors, the people you surround yourself with, are much easier when it comes to like finding that way of seeing it as an opportunity.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Okay, so let's talk now about practical steps. So Ryan says, focus on the moment, not the monsters that may or may not be up ahead. So what are some practical strategies you use to stay focused, especially when you're facing uncertainty in your business?
Yeah, so I make sure that I go down the path of the what if scenarios, because here's the thing, like, we have a struggle that's in front of us. And I like to think about it this way, like everybody's going through a struggle unless they're going through a crisis right now, because that's just the way that life is. It's like from struggle to struggle. It's just the way that things get thrown at us. But like we said, when you start seeing them as opportunities, you don't see yourself going through these struggles as much. But if you start doing the what if, like, well, what if this happens? What if that? Then you're kind of ignoring what's actually in front of you right now. And so you won't know what's going to happen in the future until you tackle what you can right now. So reminding myself that I've got to coach myself in this moment. I've got to get coached in this moment, because this is the only moment that I really have. All of these what ifs, yeah, I can think about it and help try and solve for those problems. But sometimes it's a version of self-sabotage when my brain thinks I have to figure that all out to get through this obstacle that's right in front of me right now, right? So being able to like focus my mind on what's in front of me right now, like I said earlier, how can I be most effective right now? It's not spending time in la la land thinking about all the different ideas. What if this happens and that happens? It's about how can I effectively tackle this next challenge? Who can I connect with that will help me get through this challenge even faster? That's my practical tip that I always go back to. It's asking myself a powerful question like that.
Yeah, that really hits home, because like if you hadn't said that, like it wouldn't have clicked in my mind that doing this, like really kind of focusing on like what could possibly happen, puts you in a different position than the present, right? And you're missing out on the present moment, which is all you have right now, right? So that really, really stuck with me.
Let's talk a little bit about like discipline and persistence, because he talks a lot about this in all of his books. He says it's okay to be discouraged. It's not okay to quit. So being able to cultivate that kind of like mindset to keep going, how do you do that, especially when times get tough?
Yeah, I think I had to reframe the way that I thought about quitting. And I really kind of adopted a different word. I adopted pivoting. I don't have the attitude of never quit. It's more of, okay, maybe I just need to pivot. It allows me to kind of give myself more grace, because things don't always work out, but I can take a little bit of a different path rather than just saying, you know what, I'm quitting, because that only makes me feel like a failure. So I've kind of taken quit out of my vocabulary. It's not like it's the never give up type attitude. It's more of, hey, I just need to make a little tweak. Okay, so let's talk about legacy and impact, because of course that's really near and dear to us. So Ryan encourages us to really think about the impact of our actions, not just today, but into the future. So how do you want your efforts today to be remembered or impact others in the long run?
Yeah, that's something that I think about a lot. It is my version of heart voice. We all have different heart voices that we tap into when we want to get ourselves to do hard things. For me, it's the impact that I want to make. Yes, I want to make a huge impact here on YouTube and with my business, but really where I want to make an impact is with my kids and with Teresa. So I want people to be able to remember us for generations and really step in and change the way that like our entire lineage has been because of the actions that we are taking, right? And so when I step into that, I think about like, who do I want to become? And I know we talk a lot about this on this channel, is like, in order to become that type of person, I have to be willing to grow, right? And when I'm willing to grow, that also shares with everybody else that I'm currently, whether it's my family or business, people in business, customers, it really models the behavior in front of them so they can see like, wow, he's always growing no matter where he's at. He's constantly looking to get better. And it kind of like makes a huge ripple effect in your family's life, but also in everybody else's life because they take on and embrace those. So I remember going through this one little exercise that I did, was talking about like your eulogy. Like, what would you want your family to say when you are no longer here? Now, that was one that like really hit home for me, because the beautiful thing is when you ask yourself that question now, you can decide if you are taking the actions to become that person or if you're not. Mm-hmm. It's not one of those things where I want to scare you or they wanted to scare me. It was ones of awareness. Mm-hmm. Are you showing up as that person today? Because if not, you can change that. Mm-hmm. And I mean, making sure that you surround yourself with people who have similar values to you, similar things that they want to do. That's also really important to creating legacy, right? Because if you're just a one-person show, it's very hard to stay on the path. That's also why we have our business leadership book club. I'm not sure if you know this, but we have a book club where we actually read powerful books like Ryan Holiday's that are leading us to become the business owner that we truly want to, while also becoming and creating that legacy for our family and really making sure that we don't sacrifice our physical or mental health. If that's something you're ever interested in doing, it's currently free. We'll leave you the information below. But I do want to just make sure, like when it comes to the legacy that you are creating, realizing that the obstacles that you're facing right now have the greatest opportunity for you to not only create that legacy, but for you to also teach other people through your actions that you're willing to do the work that it takes to make it happen. Thank you for being willing to do that. And thank you for being willing to lead from the front. Thank you for what you do out there every single day. And we'll see you on the next video.